going on, Matt?
Hello, hello.
How you doing, buddy?
Everything's good. 73 degrees out today, so pretty nice day. I would say I'm enjoying the weather, but I'm inside.
But you're inside. We're missing somebody. Rob is traveling this week, but he'll be joining us for our next session. But we have somebody else here, special guest star. Say hello, Manville.
Hello, Manville.
Thank you. You had to do it.
Yeah, okay.
All right, I'll do my usual thing. Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Steve Teresi, VP of Technical Services here at JL Audio. I'm joined, as always, by my buddy Matt. So say hello, Matt.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for being here.
And Manville's already introduced himself, and we got a special one for you today. This one's really cool. It's actually kicked up a lot of dust, no pun intended, around the entire building as we went through trying to find some archival kind of stuff. And it's been neat kind of going through the history, getting ready for today's session to kind of guide everyone through what got us to where we are today and where we might be going. So what do you got on the hand there for us, Matt?
We're going to go through some really cool pictures and videos from back in the day. So we're going to have to scroll through them pretty quick. I think we have over 100 total.
Yeah, no doubt. And yeah, that kind of brings up something that I wanted to mention. There's a lot of people that played a really important part of the JL Audio history, and there's so many of them. It's very likely that Manville and I are going to forget some people's names at times and not give the credit where it's due. We do apologize for that. We just trying to get a lot of stuff in, and just the editing floor is covered with lots of really important people. So we do apologize in advance for that. And because we have so much, I'm going to try to keep my interruptions to a minimum. But basically, you got the two old guys here, one older than the other. So we're going to let Manville kind of guide the early days for sure, and I'll chime in when I can. And of course, Matt will join that conversation as well and add some commentary and share with us any comments that need to be brought up. We already, Manville and I were commenting. We saw some names from the past. I see Mark Woodbury there and Lucette Nicole, two very important people in our history. So thank you guys for joining.
The wonderful Lucette Nicole.
Without a doubt.
And Terry Miller.
Terry Miller's in there, yeah. So
a whole bunch of old school showing
up. A whole bunch of them.
So that's pretty nice. Thank you for joining us. We're going to take you kind of on a very fast-paced run through our history. As Steve said, we tried to put some stuff together and find old stuff. It's crazy when you have stuff and you don't know where you put it, and you're trying to find all these old pictures and things and
all the moving
put it together. So we'll see if we can find some more and do a part 2 or whatever, volume 2 someday. But I think we put together some nice stuff. And obviously it's interesting to look back over the history of JL Audio, which is actually very long. Many people don't realize that JL Audio is a 50-year-old company almost.
Yeah, calling on 50 years.
We'll be celebrating our 50th anniversary as a company
2025.
In 2025. Mm-hmm. So that's something that we're already thinking about and what we're going to do. So if you do the math, that means that the whole thing kind of began in 1975.
That's right.
The age of bell bottoms and polyester and all that good stuff. And as with many entrepreneurial stories, it began with a couple of buddies who had a hobby or an interest, and they started playing around in a garage, usually is the way the story goes.
Matt, pull up some pictures while he's talking.
But in this case, it was a back porch. See, in Florida, we don't have basements, so all your junk goes in the garage, so there's no room. So they were working on the back porch, and their interest was building speakers. And we're talking about Jim Birch, who's on the right in this photo, and Lucio Proni, who's on the left. As young guys, they were high school buddies. They always had an interest in audio, playing around with audio projects. And when Lou was on break from his studies at the University of Florida, they decided to buy some speaker parts from a catalog that Lou had and put together some home speakers. And they played around with them and played with the crossovers and all that good stuff. And they said, hey, let's take them to the local market, the flea market, the swap shop.
As you do, right?
As you do. And let's see if anybody will buy them.
I love this picture here that's on the screen now of the two of them.
That's actually a couple of years later, but we'll get to that too. So they started by literally building home speakers and selling them in a local flea market. And as they built that little stand business that they had, they started to bring in some car speakers and other things to also sell, and speaker parts, and they did speaker repairs for people. People would bring their cabinets, and they looked at each other and said, this is kind of fun and we're doing okay, so why don't we open a retail store to do all this good stuff? And they said, that's great. They were both living in Hollywood, Florida, so they found a nice location on the main drag on State Road 7 in Hollywood.
There it is.
And they opened the Speaker Warehouse, location number 1.
That's Lou's car in front, isn't it?
I think that's one of Lou's Datsuns. Yeah. He was into Z's. And they began doing everything they were doing already in their little flea market stand, but now doing it on a more professional basis. They brought in a lot of speakers, a lot of speaker parts. They did a lot of repairs for people. They sold some car speakers. They sold some professional speakers. And Lou kept building interesting home speaker designs. This is a find right here, this photo.
Yeah, no doubt.
So in this photo, we see Lou with a bunch of designs. I think most of them are his. Not all of them are his speakers. But he kept studying how to do this. And remember, this was a day and time when you didn't just go on the internet and learn how to make speakers, right? On YouTube.
There was no YouTube university.
Nobody had a YouTube channel on how to make speakers. So, Lou had to go and find this information from really obscure places and read really gnarly books that were written by engineer types and
make phone calls to talk to people about things
and ask lots of questions. He gathered tons of information, and his mind is really quite amazing. In many ways, but his ability to absorb information and process it really helped him. And they started to thrive as a retail business, doing all this good stuff. And then something happened, which was kind of interesting in the 80s. Car audio kind of went on a surge of technology. The biggest thing I think that happened was the advent of car amplifiers.
Yeah,
because before that we had 5 watt per channel Cracos and Sparkomatics and Jensens and things like that,
right.
And so you had a really efficient little full range speaker that you hooked up to that, or a 6x9 Triax Jensen if you were really badass, and you tried to get as much volume out of those things as possible, but you never had enough power to really make bass,
right.
To really make a heavy speaker move.
And there really was not a whole lot of speakers available. So.
Exactly. So. Of course, in the early 80s, very few things existed that could provide more power. But in the mid 80s, a few companies started to play around. Audio Mobile, Car-Fi, which was
Sonic too, wasn't it?
That came a little bit later, but yeah, around that time as well. Car-Fi was another brand that's defunct and no longer around, but that was another brand of car amp. And now we had 15, 20, 30,
Whoa,
30
what do you
watts.
do with all that power?
So Lou, being the speaker genius, started tinkering with putting woofers in cars and playing around with creating more impressive audio systems. And Speaker Warehouse kind of became known as this laboratory where this crazy guy, designed really cool stuff that sounded amazing.
Love the socks in that picture.
Another trend that was huge back then, the knee highs. I had some. I was a kid. I'll admit. So one of the other trends that existed was the use of pro speakers.
Yeah.
Because power was still not huge, you had a limited amount of amplifier power. The use of big guitar speakers in cars kind of came along, and we started putting it. Speaker Warehouse would put a lot of EV.
So it's like musical instruments.
Yeah, big right? 12-inch and 10-inch EV drivers and Gauss and whatever we could get our hands
JBL
on.
Stuff. I remember.
And those are pretty full range speakers. They'll play well up into the mid range, and they're very loud with 30, 40 watts, which was perfect for what was going on. So you've made a nice board behind the seat, and you put those guys in there, and you put some horns up on the top.
And off you go.
And a little crossover if necessary, and off you go. And you had a really loud street system. So all this stuff was happening at Speaker Warehouse with them just experimenting with a bunch of cool things. Eventually it expanded into 2 new stores.
Right.
They opened a store in Hialeah and another one in Fort Lauderdale. And they also expanded into other markets like Pro Audio, for example, doing DJ stands and doing DJ speaker systems that were pretty cool. I'll show you.
This is cool.
Something people really probably don't remember. This is from the late 80s.
Yeah.
And this is a JL Audio Richter series DJ cabinets.
Those things are great.
They were actually really good.
Yeah, they really were.
And there were DJ stands and other things in the line back then. And Speaker Warehouse sold these, and a few other dealers also picked them up. There was an attempt to market that more broadly. Along with that, Lucho kept playing around with woofers as power became less expensive and more available, the ability to use real woofers, real low frequency drivers instead of guitar speakers and things like that became more obvious, as a solution to get good bass. And Lou wanted to design really cool little enclosures like we call them power wedges. The name's still used today. And little boxes that fit in the back of Corvettes or, other specific applications of the time that had speakers in them. And again, Speaker Warehouse was the place where you could always find a custom solution that wasn't available anywhere else. I joined Speaker Warehouse in '87. They were already very well established in home audio, pro, and in car audio, and some marine as well. They were selling a lot of marine speakers. And it was a thriving, fun place to work. There was always cool stuff going on. The home stuff that Lou was designing at that time was way ahead of its time. He was trying to pitch the concept of a subwoofer satellite system that was bi-amplified.
Wow.
And we were selling that to people. We would use audio control processors to do the crossover and equalization on the sub. He designed the subwoofers with his own driver designs. They were pretty big.
It's definitely ahead of the time today,
yeah.
for sure.
And you could either connect them to a pair of large towers, which was kind of defeating the point. But the point he was trying to push was, hey, a small satellite can sound amazing if you underpin it with a real subwoofer. So this is a concept that became obviously very popular a decade or more later.
Yeah.
But those were things that were already spinning around in his brain, and we were moving. We also did crazy extreme things like 30-inch EV subwoofers in giant refrigerator-sized cabinets. We put one in a Saab 900, 30-inch EV. Because
pause for effect there. It was a 30-inch subwoofer at a Saab.
It was pretty loud.
Yeah, I would imagine.
It had a lot of BAB speakers in it. It was really loud.
To try to keep up.
Yeah. So anyway, so all this is going on when I joined the company, and it was kind of a crazy fun place to be. And one day, one of our reps said, "You ought to come out to this thing we're doing up in Palm Beach. It's a sound off."
What?
Yeah, a sound off. And I said, "Why do I want to do that?" Right? And they said, "Isn't that where they just go and see who's louder and the crowd votes who's louder?" And, because I'd seen that before on the streets and parks and whatever. He goes, No. This is totally different. It's NACA.
NACA? What does that stand for?
National Auto Sound Competition Association.
Yeah, that makes
and he
sense.
said, this is all about sound quality with real professional judges. And we check RTA and we measure the sound quality of the system and all this stuff. And I said, okay, I'll go check it out. I went out there. They made me a judge. I'd never been to one before. I did RTA. Everybody was mad at me. And then
So not much has changed.
Yeah, no. I came back to the store and I talked to Lou. I said, hey, Lou, I went to this thing. And it was pretty crazy. There was a lot of cool cars where people were doing some really cool stuff. There was a shop up in Palm Beach who was kind of our arch rival for many years in competition, Audio Advisors, great guys, and a bunch of other shops. And there were some really interesting things going on. Some of them were just dumb, but some of them were pretty cool. And the cars were loud and fun to listen to. So Lou said, oh, that's really interesting. We should build a car. And we had some store demo vehicles that were kind of loud, but he said, no, let's build a car for that. And he said, because you're the one who brought it, let's build your car. So we built my Celica that I had just purchased, and we put a system in it. We should have read the rule book better because initially the car didn't do very well because we ignored many things in the rule book, kind of just did it the way we thought it should be done. So we learned over the course of that. And some other installers, Speaker Warehouse and salespeople said, hey, let's go to these shows. And they started bringing their own cars. And then all of a sudden we were working on 3 or 4 cars to upgrade them. And
where were you doing the work on that?
not in the beautiful environment you might expect. It was really under an awning in a parking lot.
The gravel parking lot.
Yeah, it was horrible. And when it rained, you had to cover everything up. It was terrible.
Building world-class sounding vehicles in the parking lot.
We didn't have much of a facility. So initially, all this stuff was made out of wood.
Yeah.
We really knew how to work with wood. We had a great wood shop down there at the warehouse where all the JL Audio stuff was made.
Yeah, Johnny too, didn't you?
We had Johnny and
Gary.
Al Birch, Jim Birch's dad worked there, and Jim Clayton, and a whole bunch of
Gary came on in what, 86?
yeah. Gary worked at the stores. So anyway, we built some interesting things, and then Lou said, "No, there's got to be better ways of doing this." We got into fiberglass, and maybe Matt, you can show some of the early attempts. Here's a great picture of Lucho working on the inside of Tommy Clark's Rocket Science subwoofer enclosure.
For those that don't know, Lou's the one in the upper left-hand corner,
Yeah.
and Tommy's the gentleman holding the trophy.
Yeah, much after the first
Yes.
picture was
How it started, how it's going, kind of thing, right?
So yeah, that's Lou working out in the parking lot there with half of the enclosure, and he's putting fiberglass in there to reinforce the wood enclosure and seal it up. And there's steel braces in there and a whole bunch of other stuff because he wanted to put 12-inch woofers in this crazy hexagonal structure that would have an amplifier thing. Maybe I think we have a video of that possibly to show you in a few. So that vehicle was very famous and successful back in the day, kind of, was a real attention getter and showstopper. So that was a lot of fun. That was the back of the vehicle. And
I think this is the video there, Matt.
yeah, you can. This is Lucio's mind at work. There were 6 precision power amplifiers, and the whole thing opened up so you could inspect the wiring.
Right. It's a little dark in there, but you can get it a little bit.
Yeah, and then the entire thing was built on a steel frame. It was all welded and had a giant linear actuator, one of the biggest ones I've ever seen that operated the whole thing.
So when it was like this, it didn't sound as good though, right? Because of the opening and
Yeah, it sounded good behind the vehicle, but you wanted to obviously close it to do demos on the inside. So then the whole structure would lift in there and dock, and everybody thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
So that vehicle was very famous, and there were other vehicles. Matt will scroll through some of those shots. It's a Civic that we built that belonged to one of our sales guys. And these cars, started doing really well locally at the regional events, and we all said, "Hey, we gotta go to Iasca Finals."
The what finals?
Become Iasca now. And
that car looks familiar.
Yeah, that was my Celica with the first. That's the first ever ISO plate. Had 4 isobaric pairs of 8W2s in it originally. So we were really concerned that we were behind the curve in Florida, and we thought that the California cars, we had heard that California had really amazing cars.
And again, there's no Google to look up.
Yeah, there's no internet. Right? There's nothing.
It's all word of mouth.
You waited for Car Audio Magazine every month to try and see what was going on in the world, and that was about it. So we were really concerned about that. So we put a huge effort into upgrading our cars, and this is the result of that in my car. We totally redid it. It was beautiful with fiberglass work and vinyl.
Lighting.
We learned to do fiberglass the hard way by trial and error, and we really,
we
didn't
did some
know
things
anything.
Not so good.
But we gained experience with this. Was Lucho's own car, which won the Best of Show at the Iasca Finals in 1989. That was a 100-watt pro car with an all-passive network. And then people thought that we advocated all passive systems.
No,
after that. They would drive me crazy. His had an elevator amp rack on it that exposed all the products. It was a beautiful car. It was an 87 Mustang. And
love that jacket.
Hector, I hope you're watching. This is Hector, one of our installers, showing off Harry Lord's car. This was a stealth system back in those days. That was kind of a different way to do it. It had a couple of 8W2s in a bandpass enclosure, and the amp rack was motorized. So, yeah, we were doing a lot of cool things to try and stand out and to make sure we did better.
Look at this young guy.
And we went out to Phoenix for the event. We really didn't know what to expect, and I guess all the hard work, all the paranoia we had about how good the cars were over there, and we were going to see them for the first time. It paid off because we won 4 first places and the Best of Show at that event, and all but one of our cars that we sent there had JL Audio subwoofers in it. So all of a sudden, people started to ask questions. Of course, hey, what's this JL Audio stuff? Oh, it's the kind of this line that we have, and there were only a few speakers in the line at that time.
Yeah,
I think it was 8 woofers in the whole line.
Probably. Yep.
And the buzz that was generated from competing in these events caused us to look at one another and say, hey, let's do something with this. Here's the groups of people who were involved in winning all those trophies.
Great. Love seeing
So
that.
we connected with Alan Wenzel, who was
Go back one slide,
Yeah.
Matt. There you go.
that's Alan on the right with his cool aviators.
Yeah.
And Alan decided to come on board, and he sold his shop and came on board took a chance on us.
Yeah.
And we were nothing. We were 7 people,
We didn't have logos.
tiny warehouse with no money and just an idea for doing something cool. And he really took a leap of faith and was instrumental in
No doubt.
launching JL Audio. So all that started to happen, and we started building this buzz, slowly adding dealers. Lucho was working on new subwoofers. He had ideas that he wanted to develop, ideas that led to the original W6 subwoofers, for example.
Eventually, but that's
IB
later.
woofers, yeah, all kinds of important work was being done at that time. Here we are partying after one of the
Well earned.
events, and Andy's apparently said something really shocking to me. Andy was the president of MB Quart at the time,
Yeah.
and a lot of the speaker warehouse cars, all of them, used MB Quart speakers, and we all used precision power amps and esoteric audio wiring. So those companies kind of took us under their wing. They were already established manufacturers, and we were not.
They were nothing. Yeah.
So they produced some ads,
Mhm.
because the planets lined up, because none of the companies produced anything that competed with another one.
Right. It worked out
So
perfect.
all
that
4
way.
companies had kind of their own, lane in the industry, and they produced some ads that were put in the magazines and helped us get our name recognition up.
Mhm.
So we owe a lot to them for helping out tiny little JL Audio back in those days. And then, as part of the idea for creating this product line, Lou had this absolute demand that we give dealers the information that was necessary to achieve good results. And his idea was difficult to execute, complicated.
It's a Lou idea.
Yeah, I worked on it with him for many, many, many months, writing this manual, and ultimately it was brilliant. It was
It really was.
a massive reason why JL Audio was successful. Because remember, we had a few woofers in our line, and they were good woofers.
Well, I think it's a number of factors that came in. It was woofers that was designed to work in enclosures. So you had to figure out how to work with that enclosure. And this was different than what had happened in the generation before. It was all panel mount. You had to mount the speaker on a big board and you were done. So dealers didn't know how to design these enclosures and get good performance out of it. So they were looking, we felt that they would benefit from a way of getting guidance as to what size box to build and how to do that. So,
Yeah, and Lou also worked with his brother B, who's a programmer, and we created a lot of computer routines to come up with all these charts. So inside this crazy book, he would have, I don't know if you can see this or not, you would have all these charts that would tell you for a given volume of air what combinations of woofers would work for what type of customer, whether the customer was a DB monster, a normal customer, or a purist, for example.
yeah.
And it was all graded and ranked. And then it gave you all the information you needed for porting the enclosure, if it was ported, or, if it was a sealed enclosure, it gave you the exact volume. So
It took some of the confusion about design and made it simple. Like Neville said, it was letter rankings, and people knew that a B was better than a C and A was better than a B. And then we had double A and
Mo.
So Mo's a whole conversation that could take longer than I think we have time for today. But this manual wasn't just a technical resource; it was a sales tool as well.
So
and I think
there's Mo down here at the bottom here where my finger is. 3 A's wouldn't fit in the box, so
we had to come up with an option.
I drew up a little dude with his hair standing up, and that's what it was.
That's what it was.
So yeah, a lot of work went into that, but it was so important because it created a system for dealers to not only create good sounding boxes, but to sell them to their customers, to back it up with information, to tell the customer this is going to sound good. I've got this book here.
Right. There was a distinction for JL
and-
Audio accounts as well.
Yeah, and when you became a JL Audio dealer, we made you pay $100 for the book, and that was an objection for a lot of people.
Everybody hated us.
There's like no way I want it for free. I'm not paying for that. Well, you're not going to be a JL
Not a
dealer.
dealer.
And the deal was that we felt that if they paid for it, they would value it and they'd actually look at it. And it turned out to be the case. They said, I paid $100 for this. I'm going to see what it's all about.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they saw the value of it. And then, of course, we updated it over time.
Right.
So that was a huge deal. Lou was just coming up with all kinds of cool ideas. Again, we had been playing with fiberglass in the competition cars. So you started to see things like Smart Box and Stealth Box. You probably recognize Stealth Box.
Yeah.
You may not recognize Smart Box.
Did you have a brochure?
No, I don't have a Smart Box.
No,
brochure.
self one.
No, I put it away.
Oh, okay.
It was a later one anyway. So there were all these fiberglass plates that they were coming up with. And we took our traveling rig on the road, Alan, Lucio, Maria.
Maria's watching, by the way.
Loaded up a trailer. Hi, Maria. Maria was a huge part of building JL Audio. They loaded up a little trailer and pulled it behind one of our Iasca cars as a demo car.
The demo car towed the trailer.
And drove out to Las
How
Vegas.
things have changed.
Shout out to Mark Cardoza, too, who's also in that picture way in the corner. He was helping unload.
Yep.
He was one of our first reps. And if you'll notice, I don't know if you can see it in the picture, but the booth says Precision Power. And that's because we didn't have any cloud at CES to get any space, but PPI did. So Jeff Schoon at Precision Power helped us to get this little spot in the parking lot, and that was our first ever exhibit.
Yep.
That was followed with, we went to Summer CES to meet with more dealers. There's a few pictures of that in the early days of. Go ahead, Matt. Move forward. Matt's asleep.
Yeah, there we
Wake
go.
up, man. There's Lou and Maria at Summer CES in 1991.
Yep.
And then there's another shot of, I think, Alan, Lou, and Maria back in those days. Alan all cleaned up, professional looking.
Look at that. He's still rocking that mustache, though, isn't he?
So, we were kind of on a roll, but still being, real cautious and cost conscious about, how we did things. But some of the products that started to come out were just really cool and really put a lot of spotlight on the company and gave us a lot of attention. Here's some of the early woofers
with the MB Court right next to
yeah,
it,
with
right?
MB Court. We shared a lot of reps with those guys.
Sure.
There were a lot of rep firms around the country that sold all four of the brands, so it all kind of worked in a magical sort of way.
Mm-hmm.
This is a big thing here. This was the first ever stealth box for the Fox Body Mustang. It went in the spare tire well, replacing the spare tire, and it had an amplifier provision inside it and a plexi window. It had a 10W5 in it.
It was ported, so there was airflow.
Yeah, it was a ported enclosure, so there was air exchange. And sold quite a few of those over
Sure,
the years.
we really
actually.
did.
It's really
I think
cool.
we only discontinued it because the 10W5 got discontinued.
Yeah, and the
and no
six
other
wouldn't
woofers
fit.
would fit.
Yeah, the woofers got deeper. So that was a really important product, obviously, because the Stealth Box line today is what covers 130, 140 different vehicle applications.
And that's the one that started it.
And this is the one that started it all. A lesser known fiberglass enclosure product is the next one here, and that was called a Smart Box. And those were kind of like giant stealth boxes that went behind the seats of standard cab pickups. Remember, this was the mini truck days.
Yeah.
And a lot of young people would
Mazda
buy a
B2000,
standard
I
cab,
guess it was,
pickup truck because that's all they could afford.
Mhm.
First they'd buy wheels because that was important, and then they'd lower it.
Right.
And then the next thing is we need to put some
We
bass
need
in it.
audio,
And,
yeah.
and those old Japanese standard cab trucks had no room.
Nothing.
So we designed fiberglass enclosures that would go back there and also provide a location to put an amplifier, and those were called Smart Boxes. They had their day in the sun. They did well for a while. They were a little expensive,
Hard to ship, too, if
Yeah.
I remember right.
but they did well. This is a close-up from that last picture, and this was at a show, and that's actually Lucio on the right there, and he's talking to, I'm guessing, a couple of prospective dealers and showing them the reference manual.
Yeah, if you
which
look
was-
carefully, you can see that same color that Manville showed in the reference manual before. And Lucio's actually guiding them through, what's in the reference manual and telling them about that, because the manual was technically a product. and it obviously was a tool to help you, get great sounding systems easier.
Yeah, the manual was the program. It was the whole thing that made it all come together. So yeah, it was an essential part of the pitch. So we talked to a lot of people about it, and a lot of people started signing on as dealers during that time period, and we just kept cranking things out. Our first component system came out, and we actually found a pair of CT1 tweeters somewhere in our.
Be careful with
archives.
that.
This is really old, and this was our first component system. We didn't want to step on MB Quart's toes because they were kind of our friends and allies.
Yeah.
And all of their stuff tended to be pretty expensive, so we came out with a very affordable component system, and this was the tweeter from it.
So
it was awful to install.
I get a kick out of this. This is the box that we found. I don't know if you could read that, but it's never used. One pair, never used. So it's very special.
These are priceless.
Yes, exactly. Worthless. I mean, they're priceless for sure.
So, but that was our entry into full range product. That was the first time
Right.
we sold a full range system. So that was kind of a big deal back at that time. Lucio was also developing a bunch of bandpass enclosures that were very popular, high gain bandpasses that people liked. And people put too much power on and blew woofers up all the time, but it was great. And he also was working on the W6 subwoofers, which were kind of a revolutionary thing. The W1s, which came out a little before the W6. Here's that cover from Car Audio magazine.
We actually dug up our copy of it too.
Yeah, back then Car Audio did some really intense comparison tests, and they were totally legit. We as manufacturers never found out what the results were until they were going to press.
Right.
And they would never let us say anything or do anything. They could say it was the worst thing they ever heard, and you couldn't do a darn thing about it.
Yep.
And they'd have these big comparison tests, and the 10W1 won against a bunch of other woofers. That helped a lot.
Some really good
created a
woofers,
boost. The 10W1 was really the first small box woofer that we created. For a 10-inch, it worked in 0.75 or even 0.65 cubic feet, which at the time was pretty small.
Yes.
Nowadays, we make 10-inch woofers that work in half that.
Yeah, 0.3.
But back in those days, when power was still pretty expensive, you needed to keep things a little more efficient. So that was a really good sweet spot. And the W1 just sounded fantastic, and it hit a magical price point. We sold thousands of them.
Yeah.
That product just took off. The 10W1 was a rocket ship for JL Audio, and dealers loved them because they were affordable, reliable, sounded fantastic, and they got nice and loud.
Mm-hmm.
This was our first demo car, first company demo car, was Allen's Cougar.
Mm-hmm.
And it had a pair of 10W1s in it. That's where we first showed them to people. Some PPI amps, if you can see that, Art Series amps in it. And the enclosure, in typical Lucio fashion, was innovative. We wanted to show people how well the 10W1 worked sealed and how well it worked ported. So the enclosure is able to switch from sealed to ported mode.
You can kind of see that a little
Yeah,
bit.
you see a valve there, a trap door that opens up additional volume and allows the woofers to be sealed when the trap door is closed. So you could demo the system both ways, and it was a really nice demo for people to give them an idea. This was another cool car that one of our dealers built. I think they were from Oregon, if I remember correctly, with ISO plates. Isobaric loading was a big deal, again, to get box volume down and power handling up.
Yeah.
It's not a thing anymore because it's kind of been obsoleted by woofer technology.
Yeah,
but
woofer
back
design
then,
got more innovative in some ways, right? So.
yeah, but back then isobaric was a big thing, and it looked cool, and it was different and interesting. So that was it. And then
yes.
and then W6 came out, which just took the W1 and put it on, massive workout program and everything else, and it had tremendous excursion for the time. It was the longest excursion woofer out there.
0.469, if I remember right.
Ooh, check out the memory on Steve. I think. Are you sure about that?
Yeah.
So the other innovative thing about the W6 was here you go. You go look that up, Steve. The other innovative thing about the W6 was the dual 6-ohm voice coils, and people looked at us like we were from Mars when we tried to explain it to them, and we told them that the reason for it is so you could do 3 woofers at 4 ohms or 1 ohm if you had one of those crazy high current amps. What is it?
.469.
I hate you. Good job. So the Mini was the first time we showed them to people, and people still talk about that demo that we did at CES with this car. We played Planet Krypton.
Yep,
and
it's like
Superman,
a roller coaster ride,
and it just was devastating, low, crazy, awesome bass.
visceral. It's just intense.
But the triple woofer thing made sense because it fit between the wheel wells of a lot of cars. 4 woofers would not fit.
Not without some funky geometry.
Right. 2 woofers would fit, but we wanted more. And 3 made sense, but there was no way to get a friendly impedance for the amplifiers of the day if you used conventional 4 ohm or 8 ohm or dual 4 ohm.
It was point something, and that confused people.
Yeah, that's where that came up. And this was a stealth box we made for the Camaro that had triple W6s in it. And the triple woofer thing was huge for a long time.
Yeah.
You were able to get great reliability, huge output, and really great sound quality using W6s and triples. It was the hot thing for a long time. What else is going on? Well, as this all is happening, we are busting out at the seams in our little warehouse.
Yeah.
We're developing cool products like this fiberglass plate. That one had a port in it.
Yep.
That was pretty unique. That was the
CS3.
next component system, the CS3, that had a silk dome tweeter.
Yep.
So that was coming out, and we're just busting out of our warehouse. We don't have any room, and it was time to make some moves. So the micro sub, the original 8.1 micro sub, very different from today's micro sub.
Yes.
It had a semicircular.
Same general
profile.
concept, though. Purpose built, specific for the driver that's in it. And
It also
tightly integrated.
It also had a very cool enclosure alignment. It was a resistively tuned ported enclosure. So it was stuffed. So it really behaved a lot like a sealed enclosure.
But had the benefit of the output of the port.
But it had better extension. Yeah, it was a really cool design.
Mouse that roared.
Yeah. So here we are in 92 wearing our pastel colors and still winning at Iasca. That's all still going on. We're doing great. Lots of trophies. That's our old friend Toto LaSalle. And
that's that ad you were telling us about, right?
The ad on the left is one of the early ads that was done by the 4 companies. After a while, that kind of had to go away because all these companies,
they were growing.
PPI wanted to make woofers, and MB wanted to sell subwoofers, and so the whole thing kind of dissolved a little bit. But we kept doing the ads showcasing how well we did at Iasca, and we continued to do really well for many years. And that the competition scene had changed a little bit. The factories had created teams and sponsorships. It kind of changed the game. Originally, the competition scene was very dealer focused and oriented, and it was really good for the local grassroots scene. But when it kind of became full of sponsorships and monies and teams, it kind of lost a little bit of that. And a lot of dealers became disillusioned because they were outgunned and they couldn't deal with the expense of doing that.
Right.
So either if they wanted to compete, they had to join one of these teams, and if they didn't, then it was hard to be competitive. Things kind of changed over the course of that decade. So anyway, I was saying we were busting out of our little warehouse, so it was time to expand. We moved around the corner.
Well, we were in a
we kept
tiny place,
we kept our tiny little place, but we got a much bigger building around the corner.
Around the corner.
Yeah.
We started connecting them.
And then over the course of the next few years, we started getting more buildings in the neighborhood across the street and all over the place. We had a warehouse down the street. We were running forklifts up and down the street, which the cops didn't appreciate very much.
No.
The warehouse was so full that in the morning we had to move everything out of the aisles into the parking lot so we could operate. So we had pallets sitting in the parking lot, and then it rained because it's Florida. So you had to cover everything up. And then at the end of the day, you had to take all those extra pallets that were moved out, and you had to put them back into the aisles for lockup at night. It was kind of crazy. But we maintained that craziness for about 5 years and developed a lot of cool things. We built the Mini there. IB4 subwoofers came out. we built up the tech department. That was our anechoic chamber. We built the wood shop, got some new equipment, but still it was so crowded.
Yeah.
We were really like rats in a maze.
You can even see it in these pictures. We're on top of each other.
You can really see it was kind of rough.
Yeah, it was very rough.
So we needed a savior. And
that was shipping.
that was shipping, yeah.
Stealth
Stealth boxes.
Those bandpass you mentioned.
Band passing, go to the micro sub again.
Right?
Triple woofer power wedges, pro wedge. Oh, Flexport. That was our Dodge Ram demo vehicle. It was very cool.
It was.
And CES shows continued and all that good stuff. But we really needed to shift a gear. In most entrepreneurial companies, you reach these points where you either need to take a big jump and a risk, or you'll basically implode because you won't be able to maintain your operations going. So this wonderful man, Andy Oxenford, joined the company.
Sucker!
And Lucho was doing everything before that. He was doing the books. He was doing speaker design. He was running manufacturing. He was so busy, and he really needed somebody he could really trust to help run the company. And Andy agreed to join us. Yeah. And that was a big moment because we were able to transition away from that compound of buildings. Andy found us a new home.
Yeah. Taj Mahal.
That's Lucho in his office in the old space. That's this young man right here who came on board as a tech guy. Yeah. And there's Andy, on his second day,
looking frightened as ever.
What have I gotten myself into? And those were like the last days there. We had trucks everywhere. It was crazy. Yeah. So we needed a break from this craziness. And this is the break that we got. We found a beautiful new building here in Miramar that was just being built. And we occupied about 70% of it when we first joined.
70%, yep.
When we first came to Miramar Park of Commerce. So we had about 70% of this building. You can see it here when it was first built. There's a shot of Lucho and Andy cutting the ribbon on the big day. That was really exciting. We stood in this building when it was empty and looked from one corner to the other.
What are we thinking?
And we said, we'll never fill this place. It's so big. It was like 90,000 square feet or something like that.
Yeah, it's huge.
Never fill this place. Well, a few years later, we needed more space. So here it is today. The trees have all grown. It looks a little nicer. We have all of this building. We also have another building slightly smaller to it. That's where we're sitting right now. That's where we're sitting right now. That's right next door. And then we have another building that's just as big as the first building. That's a few blocks away. So we have a huge amount of space here in Miramar, which is necessary because we manufacture things and we have a factory. We're not just a warehouse and an engineering department. We have a lot of space allocated to manufacturing here in the U.S. So this is our new home, and it really allowed us to take that next leap. Forward into
a little bit of elbow room
there. So what sort of things were we working on? Well, first of all, Lucho was committed to building woofers here in Florida.
Yep.
And really doing it right and establishing a real production department. So this commitment to in-house loudspeaker manufacturing continues to this day. We try and build as many of our fundamental woofers here as we can. Only the lower cost items are built overseas.
If I remember, at some of the earlier shots that we showed what was our recone department. So when speakers would fail, we would dissect them and kind of see what happened with it. That obviously fuels our engineering department, but it also taught us a lot about how speakers go together. So we had been building and cultivating a team of manufacturer people that could actually build our product for us. So it's not like we just jumped into it without knowing anything. We have been for years cultivating this team of people, Ernie being one of them, who's still with us today.
Ernie's still with us, sure. Mm-hmm. The other things going on, I remember I said we needed to have a place where we could grow from. We were working on W7 at that time. We were already working on the engineering of W7. We were beginning the work on home products, on home subwoofers. We knew we wanted to expand into home products as well. We were still designing lots of cool car products. And the other huge leap for us was to enter the electronics business. So the big step was made in 1999 to hire Bruce McMillan and Dave Creek, who were two wonderful amplifier engineers. And we set them up in a secret desert laboratory in Phoenix, Arizona. There's Bruce.
Yep.
Back in there, it was a little office. Basically, the mandate was let's do everything you've wanted to do. Let's figure out how to do something really cool. And that's what really attracts good engineers to JL Audio. Is our philosophy is we like making cool stuff.
Yep.
That's what drives Lucho. He's a highly successful person, of course, but really where he defines his success is in being able to do cool innovative things. And he enjoys the capabilities that the company has to make those things happen. And here we hired two great guys to kick off our amplifier project, and we put a lot of thought into it. And a couple of years later, we had the first JL Audio amplifiers, the legendary Slash amplifiers, which went on to be huge sellers for the company and put us on the map in a major way in the electronics industry. So they needed more space. That's their current facility, or one building of the current facility in Phoenix.
They're going through what we went through.
Exactly.
The expansion into other buildings, right?
So yeah, in Phoenix, we do all of the amplifier power engineering. We have another facility in Portland, which we'll have a picture of later, that does all the digital stuff, the DSP work. And then we have another arm of the Phoenix operation is a huge warehouse and service operation. And George Babers runs that really well, and Daryl Chapman. We hired some great people from the industry. A lot of people go, why did you do amplifiers in Phoenix? Because that's where amplifier people are.
They're all there and they don't want to move.
That's where the U.S. amplifier industry came from, right? Companies like Orion and Rockford and PPI and all these companies. And we hired the best people from all those companies to come to work for us and be able to do cool stuff. So we've got an incredible staff out there at JL West.
It keeps growing.
That hugely experienced. Currently the VP of engineering over there is Dr. Stephen Lee, who has a huge resume, and they do a wonderful job. So anyway, this was the debut of the Slash amplifiers in that Firebird that you see there. I think there's a close-up. That's a better shot of it.
There you go. Yeah.
Those were the first functional Slash amplifiers ever in that car.
Yep.
And we showed them at CES.
One was installed on the floor.
Yes, and it was down to the wire, but we made it. At that same time, we were producing woofers in Miramar for the first time. We were making 15 W3s and 18 W3s, and then a year later, we introduced the W7s to huge fanfare. The most ambitious speaker engineering project ever. This was the car that we showed at CES. It later evolved into a more finished form. We couldn't quite finish it the way we had envisioned at first, but we had to make the deadline. And we knocked people's socks off with the bass that these two 13-inch W7s were able to produce with only 500 watts on each one.
Only 500 on each?
We didn't have 1,001 yet. We were working on that too. This was loudspeaker production in Miramar back in those days when we were making W7s. And this commitment has continued, and what we do today here, I mean, if you ever had the chance to take a tour of our facility in Miramar, it really is fun and impressive.
Yeah, agreed.
So remember I said home audio was already kind of tickling our brains, and we were doing a lot of work. Carl Kennedy joined the company to kind of lead the home audio effort. He came from M&K and very experienced audio guy too. Again, we kind of took the idea of, what do you want to do? What is it that needs to be done to create a really great home subwoofer? Clean sheet of paper. We had a W7 to start with,
right,
and then everything else that had to be done.
We had all the electronics
to support it, and we wanted to enter the home audio business at the top. We didn't want to come in with cheap product and say, "Hey, here we are." We wanted to come in and say, "No, here we are with the best damn subwoofer in the industry," and we did that. We did that. So that 12W6 V2s were coming out. That's another cool product. This was our CES booth the following year. Keep going, Matt, because I think I'm talking too much.
That's right.
Cool demo car. Demo cars are a big deal for us because we all come from an installer competition background, and we get a charge out of them, and we love doing them. It's hard to justify sometimes, but we love doing them. ZR Evolution was another big product intro. Oh, our friend Flex, Funkmaster Flex at CES that year.
Yeah.
What else?
The marine category.
Marine. Well,
huge.
You talk about a big moment, right?
Yeah.
We were approached by a boat company to design premium marine speakers because they wanted something better than their competition had. And we took it on.
Yeah.
Again, clean sheet of paper, Manhattan project style, emphasis on engineering.
Skunkworks kind of thing, yeah.
And we came up with initially just a component set.
Yep.
And
we
when
did weird things with sizes and stuff.
Yeah, we did it. We made them a little bigger because that's better. We did a lot of things. And the performance was just staggering. It was so much better than the typical marine speaker out there.
Right.
And they were very expensive compared to those speakers, but they delivered. And that's the important thing. You have to justify the expense. And these products absolutely did. The boat company was thrilled with the quality of the sound, with the differentiation they were getting. And that served as a launch pad for what is today a very important business for JL Audio. The marine business is huge. It's as important as our car audio business. We have how many boat builders using JL? I've lost count. It's many
lots and lots.
boat builders who use JL Audio as standard equipment. And of course, we sell the product in the aftermarket as well. And it's been hugely successful.
What's this shot?
This is me at CES, I think, showing some clean sweep products.
Clean sweep.
So this was our first DSP, another thing that we expanded into at the time. We hired a really talented DSP engineer who, Campbell Kelly is his name.
His name,
Yeah, and he designed the clean sweep with help from our car audio engineering team. And this right here is Clean Sweep Zero, the first functional prototype of that product. This was our first DSP. It has a Shark DSP in it. And basically, you push the button and it corrected the frequency response to factory signals.
Hold that up again.
Oh, I'm sorry. So this is Clean Sweep Zero, the original prototype. Still works.
Still works.
Did you hook it up and try it?
Not
Today,
but,
no.
yeah. Next time you come down here, that's what you're going to do. So here we are accepting some awards at CES. That was becoming kind of a cool thing every year to get awards voted on by our dealers for product quality, reliability, and all kinds of business things. The Gotham and the Fathom were launched at CEDIA in 2004.
September 9th, 2004.
Again, a huge project.
At 6:30 p.m.
You got the invite there. So the Fathom combines the prowess of the W7 with the prowess of our amplifier engineering team to produce huge amounts of power.
Glass, right?
What does that cup say on it?
Beautiful enclosure.
It said Gotham with the date.
So keep moving, Matt. Keep me moving.
That's in our lobby here now.
That's the Gotham display that we built for CEDIA. What else you got?
Oh,
TW5, fascinating product, a new technology. Well, actually, a technology we had developed a few years before, had never gotten a chance to implement it, but this was the product to do it with. The 13 TW5 was designed for in-wall home audio applications and car audio applications, and it became a huge product. It enables the installation of high performance subwoofers in a standard stud bay in a home, and it's a wonderful product. And then it can be used in car audio. We use it in a bunch of stealth boxes under the seats of pickup trucks and other things where you want really high quality bass and not a lot of space. That was a technology developed by Lou many years before the product actually came out, called Concentric Tube, which received a patent. Back to home audio for a minute. This was our demo room at CEDIA, because you can't bring a demo car to CEDIA.
No,
you can, but they don't like it.
They don't like it too much.
So instead, we brought a demo room.
It would have been cheaper to bring a car.
We built the demo room here in Miramar. It's ridiculous. It's all steel structure and very heavy panels, because we wanted to produce a really exciting bass experience inside the demo room. And
The awesome understatement. Very heavy panels.
insanely heavy. It took 2 tractor trailers
Yes.
to haul this thing. And that CDS show was at the RCA Dome in Indianapolis in 2004. This is actually from a couple years after that, but it's the same room.
Same room, yeah.
And the demo was devastating. We started with some jazz and played it at civilized levels, and it was very beautiful.
Piano stuff.
Played some music. They loved it. And then we hit them with the nastiest home theater bass that you've ever heard in your life. And we finished with Blue Man Group, if I remember
think so,
correctly.
yeah.
And everybody was just absolutely blown away. The lines for the demo went on for miles, and we definitely made a statement and a splash into that world. Everybody was talking about it. It was a lot of fun. Here's the in-wall subwoofers that came out of the 13 TW5 project. And there's another shot. Those are the smaller ones, the 8-inch
So it's
versions.
a quick recap. So we're mobile audio at this point, marine audio, then we got into home audio. So with 3 divisions.
Right. Those are the markets that we're serving. And within each one, there's, segments, electronic speakers, et cetera. Here's another big product, the HD amplifiers, which came out in 2008. So just go through the products here. That's a prototype of the HD. There's a lot of activity going on in these years. Lucio in his PT Cruiser is a kind of a famous thing around here. This car is where Lucio listened to every single subwoofer prototype for about 10 years. Is that about right? Mm-hmm. So here he's testing, looks like a bass wedge.
Yeah.
W0 bass wedge. And he would listen to slight variations in the woofers and slight variations in the enclosures. He already knew what they did on paper because everything was modeled and everything was carefully designed, but he still wanted to hear it and make decisions based on what it sounded like. And he would listen to the same tracks over and over again because getting it right was job one. And he that famous car.
Yeah,
it's now gone.
The W7s we talked about.
The W7 AEs, the 10th anniversary of the W7, still going strong.
Yep.
Back in 2011, a bunch of marine products were coming out. A bunch of thin woofers came out in a couple of years after that. The TW1 and TW3 in 2014. More home products, E-subs came out, Dominion, marine source units. And then this guy right here, this building is where our team is in Portland, Oregon, where they design all the digital stuff. And their first major lift was the Fix and the Tweak products, which are still on the market today, and really launched us into the world of digital signal processing. The Clean Sweep was, a very specifically focused product. This team that we built here is capable of doing some amazing engineering, really talented guys, and they're able to develop products such as the VXI amplifiers and the MVI amplifiers. So all of this core DSP technology will extend throughout all the product lines that we make: home audio, car audio, marine, and even power sports will receive, DSP as well. So this is one of our CES suites. One of the last years we were there. Yeah. We launched a bunch of cool products. C7 was introduced in those years. Yeah. C1s, which are also hugely successful. Great product at an entry-level price. And then another huge lift was the M3 and M6. Or let me talk about power sports for a second.
Power sports.
Power sports is another major market for us. We kind of started putting more emphasis on it back in 2017. You ain't seen nothing yet.
Yeah, we got some cool stuff.
We have some interesting things in the works for power sports to really deliver a fun listening experience in these crazy things. We have a very talented team of experienced people working on some very nice stuff right now.
Yes.
So that's exciting. And then the digital stuff, you've all seen Steve and Matt and Nick and all those guys talk about Tune and talk about
it's weird being a software
Max.
company.
Yeah, we're now a software company too. It's crazy. We've had to develop those muscles. It's another world that we had never been exposed to, but we've embraced. Steve's been instrumental in doing a lot of the checking of all the details and the work, and products like VXI and MVI are all dependent on all these software projects. So that's a huge deal. VXI is another leap forward, new technology. You'll see that technology trickle into home audio products and marine audio products. You already saw that with MVI. So there's huge benefits to building those muscles as a company that, you know, Lucio always wanted to have. He wanted us to have abilities to design cool things, and we really have a very broad range of disciplines within our engineering teams that can collaborate to create fascinating products.
What I think is amazing is, although the details maybe, you know, are a little different, but Lucio always saw this. He always saw us being in all these different markets and being able to create these really cool products. And, you know, I have to modify the quote that Andy, I think, had shared years ago of what makes JL Audio different. Well, we make really cool stuff, and people like that stuff, and they buy it. And that makes us feel good. It's, you know, we put a lot into it, and it all comes, you know, like Manvel's been saying, that comes from Lou. You know,
we sell great audio is not just a catchphrase. I mean, it's
who
what
we are. Yeah.
what we live and breathe. And the reason we attract great people is because this company provides them the latitude to do things right and to do things in a cool way. You know, the audio industry can be, you know, tough. It can be difficult if it's cost constrained, or if it's you know, really corporate. You know, you're bought by a huge company. We're still an independent company. We're still a fairly small company. I like to refer to ourselves as a small company,
Big little company.
but we have tremendous capabilities. I don't think there's any audio company out there that does what we do here in the U.S. in terms of
Scale and scope.
engineering, manufacturing, you
Something I know of.
product support, everything that we do. So yeah, we're a little bit unique, a lot unique. I guess if you're unique, you're just unique. No modifier needed.
No modifier needed, exactly.
These are some scenes from the C7 intro at CES, which was dazzling too. That's a fantastic
That was
product.
what, 2018?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that was great. That sounded so good.
Whenever you see the 7 in the model name, pay attention. So
Yeah.
W7, C7.
Yeah, 7 special. So M7 Marine
M7,
subs,
yep, mhm.
C7, W7. If it's a 7, it's pretty darn good.
Yeah, agreed.
So yeah, this is what drives us. You know, let's build really cool, great audio products that make enthusiasts happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what we're all about. And we're continuing that process in all 4 markets that we've mentioned. You'll see some really great stuff very soon. So, any time for questions or?
Well, I think we got through quite a bit of it. You know, obviously that's the C7 video still running. What's interesting is some of the history sort of falls off as it gets more current, which would make sense. You know, some of the things that are pretty important milestones. A number of years back, I guess it was 2018, JL Audio got the licensing for Clarion Marine Audio.
Yes.
So that gave us an opportunity to kind of do some different things with the marine audio products.
It's a great product line. The Clarion line is really great. It's a more cost-effective, more cost-conscious line, but the quality and the performance is excellent.
And there's some really cool stuff coming out in that brand. Yep.
Yeah, we've got some great people dedicated to that product. And
Manvel touched on the M3 and M6 product. And I think we might have a video in here of the M6 launch. That was pretty cool. So if it wasn't for the rain and the cooler weather, that would have been pretty spectacular.
It rained in Miami. Crazy, I know.
So this is the launch of the VXI, right?
Yeah, that was VXI launch, showing it to all the reps. That's Ryan Tolliver from our Portland team. There's Steve.
Can't get away from me.
Somebody asked, "What about Max, Steve? What about Max?"
Max, well, Max
that's kind of another product.
Yeah, it's a whole new test gear. Yeah, that was an enormous undertaking too. You know, we brought on Nick Ames, and this is internally we kind of joke around that Max is Nick in a box, right? A lot of the ideas that he brought forward, and Manvel and I had been kicking around differences in the way we used to tune cars back when, you know, the old Celica days, right? What we did to make those cars sound good versus what we did like in the Iasca, you know, competition lanes, you know, as we got a little bit more mature, right? Using, you know, test gear and things like that. But there had to be a better way. There had to be, you know, more of a science to it than a magic to it. And, you know, a lot of that came from some guidance that Nick had shared with us and some, you know, I don't know what the right word is for, you know, our desire to get even better. our engineers needed a tool for some of the things that they were doing, and that's kind of where Max kind of came together. And I think, of course, we're a little bit biased here, but I don't think there's a lot of companies that would spend the kind of resources and time to develop that gear the way we did with Max. The return on that is really only going to show over years and years of things, and not just for sales of product, but for development of product internally.
Yeah, the benefit's indirect too.
Yeah.
We'll never get rich from selling Maxes, but it enables our dealers to be better at making great sound happen, and ultimately that lifts everything, right? That's the idea. And this kind of thinking is rare in today's business climate, but it's what we're all about. It comes from the top, from Lucho, from Andy, from Jeff Schoon, Stephen Lee, everybody who really cares about delivering a great experience to our customers. And every single person who works in this company, we have close to 700 employees here
700,
in the U.S. right now, designing, building, shipping, testing,
marketing,
that's the most important part.
Training,
repairing, everything, taking care of customers and customer service. I mean, it's a huge team of people that makes us all look good, and they're all pros at what they do, and we're fortunate to have such a quality team. So I'm trying to land this within our time frame, and I think
it's pretty typical for us. It's not too bad.
Not bad.
So we ready for some questions?
Yeah, we can take a few questions. Sure.
Yeah. All right. Oh, wrong one. This one right here.
Yes,
I know why Matt chose that one.
Any C7 8-inch mid bass drivers in the works. How do I say this? Dwayne, are you listening? Yes, it's on the proverbial roadmap. It's not imminent, but it's on the roadmap.
The question when he said Mac was actually, will there be a Mac 7?
Oh, Mac 7 someday, I'm sure.
Yeah.
We had another question from John Ricky.
And with what was or a VXI amp with more than 1,000 watts or 1 ohm stable.
Yep.
It's not on our priority list at the moment, but I never say never. There may be a big amp coming. Who knows?
You never know.
Yeah.
All right.
1 ohm stable, maybe kind of the way RD was done with the switch.
And the switch or something that might work.
When you make it 1 ohm stable, you make it less optimal at 4 ohms, so it's less flexible.
You have to give something up. So.
But with a switch, it can be done.
Mm-hmm.
So
Chip asked, where are the founders now?
They're still working here. That's Jim Birch manages our human resources team, and he's deeply involved in the functioning of the company. Lucio Proni is our CEO and chief engineer, continues to design and lead the transducer engineering team here. Mm-hmm. So yeah, they're both fully engaged. And then we've added people like Andy and Jeff and Stephen Lee, Doug Henderson, who joined us for our home audio effort. Mm-hmm. So yeah, tons of quality people here.
We had a question from Daniel. He asked, how do you better the W7 subwoofer when it's been around for so long? And does the underrated 8 play as low as 20 hertz?
Boy, two-part question. The first one, how do you better it? It's hard.
It's really hard.
Not impossible, but hard. And the differences are going to be, very small.
Yeah.
Once you reach a certain level of performance,
it's incremental, but not
incremental. I don't think you need a single driver to move more air than a W7 because it becomes impractical thermally to do so and to maintain linearity.
Right.
So you're not going to see jumps in excursion, for example, in a future W7. It's unlikely, but there may be improvements that can be made to the motor behavior, suspension behavior, etc., in a future version. So that's what we're working on. What was the second part? I'm sorry, I didn't want to.
will the 8-inch play as low as 20 hertz?
The 8W7, it depends on the enclosure, depends on the environment that you're in, and depends on how many dB down you consider it to be playing at. Of course, it plays at 20 hertz. Yeah. It's not as capable as a 10 or a 12, right, but they can dig pretty deep. I mean,
and it sounds really good doing it.
Yeah, so. 8W7's no slouch,
no joke.
Maria is very fond of you guys.
Oh, thanks, Maria.
It's happy to see you there, Maria. So Melville did mention it earlier, though. Maria was instrumental in keeping JL Audio going in the early days when Lou was pulling his hair out, trying to do everything on his own. It was basically the two of them manning everything at the front end.
Yeah.
And
Maria, Lou, and I shared a tiny little office in the original building. It was crazy. They had these really loud printers in there that were printing invoices, and we were answering phones, and we were so cheap we had call waiting. We didn't even have multiple lines. So yeah, it was. Those were amazing days, and it was just pure effort, passion, and commitment. To building this company. And, having been there in those days and seeing where it is today is, it's amazingly gratifying.
Mm-hmm. We all saw the vision.
Yeah, it's been amazing. And every year something's happening here that's like a major shift. You should see our machine shop, for example. You should see there's things here that are just amazing. And they're all done so that we can do cooler things.
Yeah. And
that's Lucho's vision from the beginning. He wants to have a company that can do really cool things. And that's what JL Audio is all about.
100%.
We had a question from Dan Latang. He said, anything new with the MX line?
You'll find out when you find out.
Scott Williams asked about a digital controller for VXI.
I assume you mean one that has some kind of feedback, like display
or something,
not just the colors. Not immediate, no. It has been talked about.
Yeah.
All right. There was a question about an upgraded standalone DSP.
You very well might think that. However, I could not possibly comment.
We hear you loud and clear.
All right. We had a question about an HD V2.
I want you to say
I'm going to blurt it out. Maybe.
All right. We're moving down the list. We got a lot of comments right now.
Very specific questions here. This is about history, not about future.
Larry asked, whatever happened to the 30-inch sub that was in the Saab?
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Who knows? We took the enclosure out at some point because I think Steve wanted his Steve Seidel,
different Steve,
who's also an owner at Speaker Warehouse. He wanted his car back.
For some reason, the 30-inch took up a little room.
But yeah, we built a few things with those silly 30-inch subs. That thing had a styrofoam cone and a really low power handling, actually. But
because you only needed a couple of watts.
30 watts would rock that thing.
We had a question about home audio tower speakers.
You never know what the future might bring.
You never know.
All right.
You watching now too.
This is about history.
Moving down the list. Jesse said we're doing a great job today. Yesterday was not as good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse.
So just real quick, Bill Hamsey is watching, and he definitely deserves a note. He helped take our research and development of like stealth boxes and projects like that to a whole new level, and he continues to do amazing things for our company. He started out with us here in tech, right?
He did, from an installer background. He's self-taught in a lot of areas. Does amazing work.
Don't say too much good stuff about him though, because what else you got,
Matt? There's a bunch of them. So, will there be an upgrade to VXI or an HD with the DSP?
Yeah, projects like that we're excited about the DSP category, and obviously we have the capabilities to do lots of things, and obviously amplifiers, we have the capability to do lots of things, and there's lots of conversation and some early scratchings being done on all these types of products, like a higher level DSP product, more integrated DSP amplifiers. These things are things that we're talking about. We're not at a point where we could share any kind of a timeline on most of those projects. So
Yeah. It's difficult for us to talk about future products, whether they're real or not. So
let's
I
see.
think what Manville laid out the groundwork of some of the things that we have the capability of doing, not only in the engineering talent, but the capacity to build. And you mentioned the machine shop. We've got a lot of things that allow us to be very flexible in our designs. So
you're going to see some amazing things in all of our market categories in the next couple of years. So it's going to be fun.
Questions are still flowing in. Are we still good on time, or should we wrap it up?
I don't have anywhere to go at the moment.
Okay. All right. So Scott asked, what's JL's next demo vehicle?
That's a good question.
It's a good question. Every time we do a demo vehicle, we swear it's the last one we're ever going to do. And then we wind up saying, a few years go by, hey, you know what? We should do another demo vehicle.
That'd be a question for Bill Hamsey. But,
and Andy Oxenhorn.
I have a feeling I know what Bill's response might be. And he might tell you to go listen to the Cadillac that's already done.
Yeah, well, we have the Cadillac XT4 right now, which is not a Jeep. It's not really an off-road vehicle. So that qualifies. But yeah, we'll take a look at doing some more demos soon. We love the process of designing and building them. We take a long time to do it because we have pretty high standards for stuff, and Bill is very meticulous. So once he sinks his teeth into it, it becomes a very serious project. It's not just a quickie.
We had a question come in from Dan. How many sets of those door pods, like in Lucio's Mustang, were made?
Oh, yeah, those were sold as a product.
Yes, they were, weren't they? The bolt-on. What did we call them again?
I don't remember. They held the three-way MB-Quart speaker system. And they fit the Fox body. I'm guessing we sold, right? I don't know, a few dozen pairs of them.
Probably, yeah.
Who knows? They're all hand laid, hand covered. A lot of labor went into those.
Yeah, no doubt.
We had a question from Ben. He asked, were those the first generation tweeters that was made by JL Audio? And do we have a matching pair of woofers?
Somewhere in engineering, there are golden samples of just about every product we've ever had.
It's another thing about Lou. He doesn't throw anything away ever.
So there you'll find.
That's why we got all these buildings for Lou stuff.
Yeah, there you'll find the archive of stuff. This is something we just happen to have here in our area, so that's what I showed it. And yes, those are the first JL Audio component tweeters. I'm trying to check myself. Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Now, the slash amps weren't the first JL Audio amplifiers.
No, that's true. Oh, I wish we could have found
I didn't mention that. But Speaker Warehouse sold some
JL 100,
reference 100, 200, and 300.
That's
what they were.
Big gold amplifiers.
Bill Hamsey says he's retired.
Never. No, we'll drag you back, Bill.
Good luck. Here's a subjective one. It says, when did Steve become so awesome?
Yeah, when did I become so awesome, man?
Shortly after birth, I'm sure.
What you guys may not know, I had to beg Manville to hire me. It took 9 months. I saw Tommy's van in a magazine in 1990. Actually, I found out about Manville in 1989. It was May of 1989. I saw a magazine, Car Stereo Review, did a review on some woofers, and the one that won the test was the MB-Quart 8-inch subwoofer. So I called up the closest dealer I had, which was Speaker Warehouse, where Manville was still working at the time. And, the price was ridiculous. It was like $340 each. Oh, my gosh. I was so put out that I bought the second place winner instead because I couldn't afford those. But I heard this Celica that he had with these other, I'd never heard of these JL Audio woofers, right? But I was so enamored by, his passion for everything that I kept every so often I'd bug them. And then I saw Tommy's van in Car Radio and Electronics magazine, and I saw Mandel Smith's name. I was like, Mandel Smith, there's only one of them. It's got to be the same guy, right? And I started calling. That was in December of 1989. December of 1990. And,
Yeah, time's running out, okay?
They finally hired me in the June of 1990.
I said, okay, Steve, shut up. I'll hire you.
Exactly.
Just shut up.
So to answer the question, it was probably June of 1990 because I started working with this guy. So
Yeah, Steve came on board, and shortly thereafter, I left Speaker Warehouse to go.
it had nothing to do with me.
No,
though.
not at all. And to do the JL Audio thing full time, to work in the JL Audio office. So Steve took over for the Fort Lauderdale Speaker Warehouse store for a few years before he made the transition to
About
become
5 years later, yeah.
tech at first, and eventually director of tech services, and
The rest is history.
the rest is our history. Yeah. So yeah, Steve's been huge, and delivering the gospel of JL Audio around the world. He's trained all over the world, and
Very
I don't know how many people you've trained, but it's got to be tens of thousands.
Well, I hope so. Saving the world from bad sound, one guy at a time, right?
Yep.
Maria's asking about more old pictures. We do have more, but as you see, we kind of went long as it was. Some good ones too. So.
I'll ask you the same, Maria. Do you have any old
Yeah,
pictures?
yeah. So if you have any, Maria, share, please.
Just finishing up to see if there's any more questions. Scrolling down, we had a lot of comments today.
That's good.
You're always drinking Gatorade, apparently.
Oh, yes. Well, I don't want to drink soda.
Bill said, "Great work, fellas."
Difference.
Okay, we have the question from Brian. He said, "Do you have any of those marine dealer displays for sale?"
Not here. We are building them again.
Yeah, I think we just recently fired that machine up
During
again,
all the
so-
craziness of the last couple of years, we suspended production on those because we had to focus on making sellable product. But I think we've resumed.
I think we have, yeah, and we found
So-
that new power supply too. So
So you want some? Put your orders in.
Mhm.
We'll make them for you.
All right. I think that about sums up what we have here.
this was fun. So now you know why we brought Manville. He's got the history down.
That's why they keep me.
That's
for
exactly
historical
right.
value.
So
Yeah, seriously, thank you. You guys both did a fantastic job.
Well, thanks for inviting us, and thanks for putting this together, Matt. Appreciate it. Thank you to everybody who dropped by and listened to this.
thanks, and for anyone whose name we didn't mention as part of our history, we're sorry about that. But as you can see, there's a lot to cram in less than it took us just over an hour. But I'll echo what the guys have already shared. Thank you so much for watching and being a part of our history yourselves, and we're looking forward to 45 plus more years. So
See you next week.
take
Thanks,
care.
guys. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.